Here to set you free. How you doing? I'm Leslie Marshall. Happy Friday. I don't know about you. It's been a long week, and I'm very glad to end up. Hello, and I'm not happy hour at happy hour yet. How many hours? Right? To end up the week with Scott Paul. Scott is joining us today. As you know, if you have watched us or listened to us before, and if you don't, then welcome. If you have, welcome back. Scott is president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. And the AAM is a partnership established by some of America's leading manufacturers and the United Steelworkers Union. And for almost 20 years, Scott or more, and the AAM have worked to make American manufacturing a top of mind issue for voters and our national leaders. And they've done it through effective advocacy, innovative research, and a savvy PR strategy. Check out their website, americanmanufacturing.org. And if you enjoy watching Scott here, you will enjoy watching the AAM podcast, The Manufacturing Report. You can check it out on YouTube. Their YouTube channel is youtube.com/@AmericanMFG. And you can listen to episodes if you're not joining them live. The Manufacturing Report, just check out americanmanufacturing.org/podcast. On X, follow Scott at Scott Paul AAM. Follow AAM at Keep It Made in USA, and on BlueSky at keepitmadeinusa.bsky.social. Scott, thank you for coming here on this Friday, and welcome back. Summer isn't over yet. And the temperatures are hot, and a lot of us are, having a meltdown physically, but China is having a meltdown economically. So, there are a lot of people talking about the doom and gloom and looking at the stock market and, what tariffs are going to do here. But China's economic meltdown is worse than ours is. It's more of a roller coaster and with more downs and lows than highs. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I want to say it's worth pointing out that, things in the United States, people are very anxious right now about, and with good reason, I think, across a wide variety of fronts. But sometimes it's helpful to widen the lens and see what else is going on around the world. It can be extraordinarily helpful. And, in China in particular, there are some serious problems. And the youth unemployment rate, that's for, young people working age who aren't going to school, is reported at being 14.5%. Now, people who know and look at the look at the stats, think it's probably at least twice as high as that. It's 30 to 40%. And it's gotten so bad, and this struck me, that these young people are actually paying to appear like they have jobs. So
Wait, explain that to me. How does that work?
I, I could not believe it when I read it. It was on the BBC. But there are these, think of like a WeWork or some sort of co-locating thing, except for you're going there, you're paying, and you're pretending like you're working. And instead of a company paying you to do work, you're paying that company to make it look like you have a job there. Um,
Oh my God.
yeah, in the hopes that this would help your
Where are they getting the
resume.
money if they don't have a job?
Yeah, that I do not know. So, it doesn't sound like they're climbing a ladder. It sounds like they're digging a hole,
Right,
unfortunately. And
right.
and it's just, and so there has been this real challenge with youth unemployment in China. Its economy is in transition. There's some other things that we can talk about with respect to China too. But that was one thing that really struck me, that, I was, and it makes me, again, we have challenges in the United States. We see some rising prices. We obviously have the president doing something different every day that causes a great deal of concern. Um, but, fundamentally, we still have an economy that has relatively low inflation, relatively low unemployment, relatively functional compared to what China's leaders are trying to deal with right now. And it's especially important because obviously in China, they don't have the right to change their government. They don't have the ability
Right.
to change their government. And so this is putting, I think, a great deal of pressure on the ruling party, the Chinese Communist Party, to try
Right,
to
right, and
come.
the Chinese government owns a lot of these companies they try to get jobs with, and has the decision to hire or fire them. They have, beyond overreach in the private sector, unlike, here in the United States, at least for now, and hopefully it stays
Yeah,
that way.
yeah,
To your point about, people not, pretending to work, or using, paying to go to a facility to try and find work. I would imagine that I read there's a lot of unsold homes that are owned through some of those state-owned
yeah,
enterprises, because they have a property crisis, not just an employment crisis on their hands.
yeah.
So, Scott, somebody out there is, I'm sure, thinking this question, so I'll ask it. Um, is our fight, with regard to trade and tariffs with China, then would one say working?
Hmm. It's certainly putting pressure. And I think whether or not you agree or disagree with Trump's tactics or his politics or what have you, I mean, China is an issue and has been an issue. And the way the Chinese government has approached the economy over the last 20 to 30 years has had a real impact on people here as well. And we've seen that because China just created a bunch of factories, wanted to just export a lot of stuff, didn't care about the working conditions, didn't care about the pollution, didn't care about the trade rules. A lot of this stuff ended up in the United States. We saw a massive amount of deindustrialization here, Leslie, and it's something called the China shock, and a lot of communities have seen it. Now, the other thing, and this is what you were referring to before, is that the other way that the Chinese government tried to pump up its economy was through just a massive program of building houses. And there are these basically zombie suburbs where nobody lives, or zombie apartment buildings where nobody resides. And this again, this data is unbelievable. 60 million vacant apartments in China. 60 million vacant apartments. That's how bad the property crisis is. And
I'm
so,
surprised. I'm surprised American corporations haven't gone in
yeah.
and swooped those up for like pennies on the dollar.
Right, right. And so this is, the Chinese government is trying to figure out a way to deal with this. And
Well, wait,
they're,
wait, Scott, to your point, in the materials, that you and I both, get, so,
yeah,
peek behind the curtain at Oz, right? The thing I read that blew my mind, equally, is to the point that you made. They have 408 million square meters of excess inventory. If you put all of the excess inventory in real estate that they have that's empty and for sale, it's larger than the size of the city of Detroit.
yeah, yeah,
Insane.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's what you call a bubble, right?
And yeah, and I'm also surprised because I got to be honest, I live here in Southern California,
Hmm.
okay? And uh my daughter's school has a boarding section. She doesn't board.
Hmm.
It's 100% Chinese. Like, the
Mm.
parents from China send their kids here. And then the parents come over now and then, and they buy up over market, they overbid houses and pay cash, right? Here in the United States. So I'm just surprised because they're investing so much here in their kids' education and real estate, to visit their kid.
Yeah,
You'd think
right.
they'd do it over there. Maybe they're thinking they won't make any money, because if they buy it, what do they do with it if nobody
Yeah,
can afford to rent it?
yeah. Or the government can seize it at any time in China. And so I think this is part of the
Excellent point.
concern: is what does this future look like? And the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, they're running out of tricks because they tried again, this big manufacturing surge. We're now putting up tariffs to try to block that. And not only us, but other countries are too. I mean, Canada is, the EU is as well. And so there's more countries that are saying no to like this, all this excess production from China. And instead of buying property in China, you're right. These Chinese families who are upper middle income are buying property in the United States because they know it'll appreciate in value. And so it is a dilemma. Those two things, youth unemployment, massive housing bubble that China's going to have to deal with. And they have fewer cards than they used to have.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Scott Paul, president of the AAM, and we're going to talk about tariffs. We're going to get a little status update on that and break it down country by country, what countries we have deals with, what countries we don't. In the meantime, during the break, check out the website for AAM, AmericanManufacturing.org. On YouTube, I want you to check out youtube.com/@AmericanMFG. That's the AAM's podcast, The Manufacturing Report. And you know what? You can just, check out past episodes by going to americanmanufacturing.org/podcast. Going into the break here, also follow Scott on X at Scott Paul AAM. Follow AAM at Keep It Made in USA. And be sure to follow the AAM on BlueSky at Keep It Made in USA.bsky.social. I'm Leslie Marshall. He's Scott Paul. Who are you? We'll be back with you in just a moment. Don't go away. We are back. We are me and Scott Paul. Scott Paul is president of the AAM. Check him out at Scott Paul AAM on X and follow the AAM at Keep It Made in USA on BlueSky at Keep It Made in USA.bsky.social. The Manufacturing Report is a great podcast. Check it out at americanmanufacturing.org/podcast or on their YouTube channel, youtube.com/@AmericanMFG and their website, americanmanufacturing.org. Scott, we're going to touch upon tariffs. We typically do nowadays with everything going on. So let's have a quick status update. The Trump administration has announced deals with a lot of countries. Those deals are not, they're lacking in specifics. They're not fully fleshed out. And they're in active trade talks. So there's really not a trade deal. There's an ongoing trade discussion. One could say some of these countries are Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, Indonesia, the Philippines, the EU, the UK. So before we break it down, anything to that before we go country by country.
Yeah, I think it's probably hard for the average person following the headlines to try to figure out what's going on because they've never had to deal with tariffs before. Right? And so all of a sudden there's this blizzard of news about it. And, what does it cover? What doesn't it cover? And even though there was this latest tranche of announcements earlier this month, there's still a lot of stuff that hasn't been done, right? And the stuff that hasn't been done is a final deal with China.
Mm-hmm.
The deadline got pushed back till November
Again.
on that. There will be at some point a renegotiation of what used to be called the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, then was called the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement. And so we have some temporary tariffs in place on Canada and Mexico, but there'll be a renegotiation of that deal. And if you take all of that together, that's a big chunk of the trade that the United States does. But it's
those
also,
are not done deals.
Those are not done deals. That's right. And then you have the situation, and I think this is so interesting, is that India got this 25% rate, which is pretty high, and did something to aggravate the president. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to jack it up another 25%. And so it's going to be 50% on most Indian goods. And so there are some exceptions of certain types of products, like Apple kind of got cut out of a lot of the Chinese tariffs, for example. And so the way, it's interesting, the way this is hitting back in the US, we haven't really seen yet. I mean, I guess there are some signs that it may or may not have an impact around the edges, but there are still, the firms did a couple of things to try to look at this. They either stockpiled stuff before the tariffs, or they renegotiated contracts, or they found other sources, or they took a bit of a margin hit. And so this hasn't been, I don't think for most people, other than a few items, and I'm going to give like coffee as a very tangible example, where you have seen some price increase.
Right.
That for most things, it hasn't shown up in a super measurable way in the inflation yet. But I'm trying to think of the way this is like, Trump's trade team is like the chefs at a very fast-paced diner where they have all these tickets up on the board in front of them with 1,000 different dishes done 1,000 different ways and all these deadlines, and they're trying to get them done. And it's very hard. I would say it's very hard to do that. Usually we have like one of these fights at a time, but we probably, honestly, Leslie, have, 10, 15, I would say, open like conversations. And
Yeah.
that's really hard to do.
Absolutely. So let's look at some of those, approximate a dozen deals. And let's start with Japan. Their tariff rate was actually reduced, right, from 24%, that was the baseline in April, to 15%.
Yeah.
Does this show Japan winning and we losing in this, tariff, agreement under the framework of this agreement that's not even done?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of how a country can successfully kind of approach a trade negotiation, because we do have a trade deficit with Japan. You might have expected a bit of a higher rate,
Mhm.
but it came in lower in part because the Japanese government pledged, something like $500 billion in new investment.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say in gold for the Oval Office. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
I don't know about that, but I do. But there was this conversation about making investment in the United States, which, if it comes to fruition, depending on how it's structured, could obviously have somewhat of a positive impact. So that's an example of, yeah, like a country that kind of dodged a bullet, dodged a big kind of trade tariff bullet, so to speak. And I think one concern is that, one of the imports from Japan, automobiles, which causes some consternation to auto workers in the United States, as well as the companies that are based in Detroit, they're going to have a relatively low tariff rate
Right.
coming in. And so you look at it and you're like, well, did we give away too much? And if you're looking at it from the auto perspective, the answer is probably yes. We
Yeah.
we probably did give away too much.
Let's look at South Korea. Is it fair to say this is a done deal? I mean, the trade deal led to a 15% baseline tariff on imports from South Korea. Done deal? How
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
is that for them? How good is that for us, or vice versa?
yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know that their rate is going to increase. I think that the president of South Korea is going to meet with Trump
Mhm.
later this month too. And I know that we're seeking their collaboration on investing in shipyards in the United States, and probably seek a broader investment agreement as well. But that's another example. And this is, where, again, there's autos that come in from Korea where this relatively low tariff rate
Right.
has to be somewhat of a concern, again, for the domestic automobile companies. But yeah, I think that there are some other things that we're likely to see with Korea happen down the road, Leslie.
Yep, absolutely. Another part of Asia is Vietnam. The reciprocal tariff there lowered to 20% from 46% in early April, very similar to Japan, similar numbers. Again, are we winning or losing?
Yeah, and so this is the, Vietnam, for people who pay attention to this stuff. They've known for a long time that, like, Vietnam is the new China. Like, this is where a
Yes.
lot of the new
Yeah, you see a lot
manufacture.
of things now made in Vietnam versus made in China, and made in India or
Correct.
Bangladesh as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I think that there's a good feature that we can talk about in a bit of the
Oh
Vietnam
my
deal.
God, I'm not paying attention, Scott. We have a break. Can you hold on? I'm so bad. And it's even written on my screen. We're going to take a break. Mark's like, shut up. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with Scott Paul, president of the AAM&U, right after this, talking more on these trade deals, breaking them down country by country, and much more to come. Don't go away. We are back. We are me and the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, the AAM, Scott Paul. Be sure to check out their YouTube channel. They have a great podcast called The Manufacturing Report, or he, Scott, and his crew do. YouTube.com/ at American MFG. On their website, a plethora of information. That's where you can find the gift buying guide that is really good year round. It helps you decide, hey, if you want to be, a conscientious consumer, you can say, I want to buy American products that are made in America. I want to help these small mom and pop companies. Some of them you'll never know. Some of them may not be able to find on Google because, maybe they make most of their stuff here. Anyway, go to americanmanufacturing.org. You'll find that information there. It's invaluable to me whenever I buy a gift, not just at the holidays. Also on X, follow AAM at Keep It Made in USA. Follow Scott at Scott Paul AAM, and follow them, the AAM, on BlueSky at keepitmadeinusa.bsky.social. Scott, thanks for holding. Welcome back. We're talking about the tariff status update. We had gone over Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, and let's finish these up before we work over to something that is very near and dear soon to Scott and my heart. Not that this isn't, but let's talk about trade deals with Indonesia and the Philippines. Both of these countries, received, feels like companies, right? Received 19% reciprocal tariffs, again, down from a baseline of 32% for Indonesia, 17% for the Philippines. So the Philippines went up, Indonesia went down. Why is that? And again, who's winning and losing with this deal?
Yeah. These are
And by
again,
the way, the Philippines have not said it's a deal if you look at stuff
right,
online.
right. And there's different interpretations of the deal from both sides in some cases. But like with some of these other Southeast Asian countries or East Asian countries, the rate is a little bit lower than what it is for China, in part because they're trying to divert, some of the imports coming in from China, allowing some production to come from these other economies. Obviously, as we're trying to reshore some of it as well, and these other economies are either military, diplomatic, or economic allies, or all three in some cases. And so with Philippines, Indonesia, not a surprise. One interesting feature of the deals with countries like Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam is that there's another tariff rate, which is like 40% for goods that originated in China, are gently like, gently altered, I guess you could say, and then sent on to the United States to
Right.
avoid something that we call circumvention, which has
Right.
been a real problem. And
Right.
so I would say just I think it's all in the enforcement, how this is enforced, whether it's going to be good or bad. But I like that feature. I actually think that that's a great feature to have in a trade agreement to make sure that the parties to it are actually benefiting from it, and not, say, a country like China. But yeah, Leslie, the bottom line on this is that there's still a lot of paper to be written about it. There's differing interpretations on both sides in terms of some of these agreements. And so it's not, there have been announcements made, but there's still a lot of that spade work to do to make it a reality.
And let's look at the EU. I mean, although it's a group of nations, obviously, it's not just one nation. This seems to be for me, the murkiest. As somebody just like looking at the information. There seems to be some ambiguity over semiconductor, steel, and aluminum tariffs. There are existing Section 232 measures that may still be enforced. So,
Yeah.
could you explain to everybody listening and watching Section 232 measures that may still be enforced, and how this is murky, and what the ambiguity is, or where the ambiguity lies?
Yes, and this is something we're going to introduce a new term here called stacking, which of course kids are familiar with when they're stacking toys on one on top of
Right,
one another. But this is
right.
stacking tariffs on one another. And so, say you have a steel and aluminum tariff, and an auto tariff. And so, and steel and aluminum are a big component of the auto. Are you going to include all of that, or are you just going to take one of those products? And the EU thinks that the tariffs aren't going to be stacked, that it's just going to be a base tariff, and it is not going to include some of these other things like steel and aluminum. The United States has a different interpretation of that, and so we're going to see. This is not a trivial issue at all. It's going to be an important issue for the U.S. and the EU to work on down the road. At the same time that they're trying to figure out issues with respect to collective security and Ukraine and everything else. So there's still a lot of work to do.
Just with the framework that as murky and ambiguous as it is, does this benefit or hurt and harm the aluminum and steel industry within the United States?
Yeah, well, the steel and aluminum, there's now a 50% tariff on imported steel and aluminum, with very, very, very few exceptions, coming into the U.S. And so, this stands to benefit steel and aluminum in the U.S., but I think a lot depends on some of the other aspects of the trade policy. Is the economy going to
Right.
continue to move strong enough to drive demand in steel and aluminum that will allow them to take advantage of this and perhaps create more steel and aluminum jobs? And so we're still waiting for that. And I think I think there's a lot of wait and see attitude until all this policy was worked out. And I think we're closer to the end of it than the beginning, but there's still a
Yeah.
lot of work to do, as we discussed, Leslie.
Absolutely. And last but not least would be the UK, the United Kingdom. Not talking Rolls Royce or Bentley, right? But a bilateral deal resulted in most goods that are, coming from the UK, the origin being the UK, face the minimum 10%
That's right.
reciprocal tariff. Again, Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum may still apply separately. Why do you think the tariff is so low with the UK versus some of our other trading partners?
I think this is a perfect example of like personal diplomacy and the fact that the UK government worked very hard with Trump on some of this, and so
Came to the table first, in a sense,
yeah,
right?
that's exactly right. And so I think it showed the power of that personal diplomacy. And you can decide yourself whether this is a good way to conduct trade policy or not. But the UK government clearly understood that for being at the front of the line and also bringing something to the table was going to yield some results, and it did for them. The good news, we don't have a big trade deficit with the UK. There's not a lot of trade tension there, and so that's an example of where we could afford to give away a little more, and it's not going to do any harm to the U.S. economy.
Absolutely. Let's talk about something you and I hope I won't say the kids' names, don't worry, but you're okay that I share a little personal stuff that we've talked
Absolutely.
about? Okay,
Yeah.
Scott has twin boys, and I have Irish twin boy and girl. I adopted my son, and my daughter came later. They're 9.5 months apart. And Scott's are 9.5 seconds apart. And we've both been doing the college touring circuit, and some of the colleges, which I think they should because we're paying for it, like I'll be honest, my alma mater, I got to give credit where credit is due. Northeastern University, we toured it last week, and they showed us a dorm room and the bathroom, which to a teenage girl is important. But some of the other schools I won't mention, I don't want to affect my daughter negatively. They just didn't. But when kids are moving into colleges, and we're both going to be empty nesters overnight, right, Scott?
Yeah. That
Yeah.
that is true.
We were
Yeah.
just talking off the air. I said, I wish this year was over. I meant for the traveling for the colleges and the stress and the application fees and the essays. And did you write your essay? Did you submit that on time? Because, teenagers are not that responsible, right? Let me see. What am I doing now? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. See, I'm seeing all the old stuff. But anyway, we'll start on this and we'll hit back a little bit more with it. So, college move in is
Yeah.
beginning. Students are heading back to campuses throughout the country. It's exciting. It's an emotional time. You and I are going to be going through it next year, having drinks and crying with each other as freshmen prepare to leave home for their first time. But it is a stressful part of starting the school year, moving into a dorm. What do you buy? What do you take? What stays home? What products are best? And you guys are awesome. I hope you keep this and have this for us next year, Scott, because there is a list of made in America dorm first dorm or first apartment essentials, because some people move into apartments on campus with other people. And let me see, we have, you know what, why don't we take a break and then we'll go through the list. And I promise to get through that and our other items. Because some of these you think, oh yeah, I forgot about that. We'll talk about these great products from these great companies made in America for your kids going off to college, whether they're going to live in a dorm or they're going to share an apartment with some others on campus or even off campus. Maybe they're going for their, second, third, or fourth year at school, and they're like, I'm done with dorm life. We'll be back to talk about that. So stay tuned and get ready to write this stuff down. By the way, you can find that stuff at americanmanufacturing.org. Back with Scott, back with you right after that. And we're back. I'm Leslie Marshall. He is Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Like I said, check out their website to check out what we're talking about right now, americanmanufacturing.org. Check out their YouTube channel, the podcast, The Manufacturing Report, where Scott interviews some of the people who head up these great companies and these products made in the USA. Go to youtube.com/@AmericanMFG. And also you can listen to episodes of The Manufacturing Report for their, visit their podcast site, americanmanufacturing.org/podcast. On X, follow the AAM at Keep It Made in USA, post about these great companies and more in these products. And follow Scott as well, and he will cross-reference that as well at Scott Paul AAM, and on Blue Sky at Keep It Made in USA.bsky.social. Okay, Made in America dorm room essentials. I am all excited about this, and like I said, keep it going. So Scott, first off, great that you separate it, and this is so smart to do because I saw kids moving in while we were doing the tourism, so I'm sure that you did as well. But bedding, right? Bedding, that is like the most important thing. That's the biggest thing in that tiny dorm room. The dorm rooms are usually twin XL.
Right.
So you want your kids to be comfortable. Not sure how comfortable the mattresses all are, but might as well have their bedding, their sheets and stuff. Tell us about Authentic 50.
Yeah, authenticity.
Sorry, Authenticity.
Yeah. So they're one of there's a couple of suppliers of made in America bedding. Authenticity 50 is one. Redland Cotton is another one. This is a cool story. Authenticity 50 is because everything, like the cotton's grown in the United States. These sheets are woven in South Carolina. They're finished in Tennessee and sewn and cut in New Jersey.
Wow.
And the nice thing about them is that they're not schmatas, right? They are things that can last for 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's and let's be honest, a college student spends a fair amount of their life in their bed. So
yeah, especially now when they have laptops and not sitting at their desk as much, they like to literally be on their lap, on the bed. My kids do it at home all the time. What the thing I like about this, and some people might say, well, Leslie, I checked it out and they're a little bit more, but look, if you buy sheets at Target, you're going to buy 2 or 3 sets perhaps throughout the year, because when you keep washing them, and our kids don't do laundry as well as we do necessarily. I'll tell you, I bought sheets, I hate to admit, at Target in the past, and seriously, they just rip. They just rip, especially when you're pulling that, fitted sheet. Authenticity 50, you're not going to have that. It's better quality, and you get what you pay for. And why not buy one set for the year as opposed to making a few trips to Target and getting that text, Mom, Dad, I need ... Can you buy ... Can you order ...
Exactly. So, and I do want to give a shout out to, we had a summer intern, Elise Noonan, who was a recent college graduate who just went through all of this. And so she was super helpful in identifying
really
the categories and the, and some of the suppliers, because we were lucky to have actually a college student perspective on this. This wasn't a bunch of parents curating this list. This was actually some college age kids who did it, which I thought was amazing. They did a great job.
One thing that has gone through my mind almost in a nightmare fashion is, how do I schlep all the stuff from here to there? Because not everything's going to fit, in a suitcase. But, I mentioned the mattress, and, you're not going to replace the mattress. That's going to be heavy, but you can have a topper, and toppers are really great. I just did that at my mom's house. I got her new mattress. I got her lumpy mattress to the other room because she doesn't want to part with it. She's frugal, but we got a topper for it. And it makes it much more comfortable for guests, that come over. Dormco.com has made in the USA options for those foam mattress toppers that fit those beds and make the dorm mattress more comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, they do, and this is this is a product category where there are more than one. In fact, there's a number of made in USA options along with mattresses themselves. Although, again, as you point out, a lot of those are supplied by the schools. So, it's actually something where you can have some success finding made in the USA. It's not as much of a treasure hunt as some of these other goods can be, Leslie.
Yep, absolutely. I have to say that one of the things I didn't have enough of when I was in a dorm was storage space.
Yeah.
You're sharing your space with another person. And one of the things I noticed in these dorms, although they try to utilize the space quite well, one dorm had drawers under the bed. And
Hmm.
I thought, that's smart. But most dorms, they don't utilize that space under the bed. And you can do stuff like put plastic storage containers under there. And there's a company that you made in the USA again called Sterilite, a great option. Tell us about them.
Yeah, and so it's those, I mean, they're ubiquitous, those big plastic bins that you see. And
Yep.
for a college kid, they are essential. And you're right, they can tuck right underneath one of those slightly elevated dorm beds. And I feel like I saw 25 or 30 dorm rooms over the past year. So
Yep.
I can see how essential this is. And Sterilite also makes them in different sizes. So if it's lower to the ground, they have lower, they have, so there's a lot, they can be on
Exactly.
rollers, they don't have to be on rollers. The really cool thing, Leslie, is that again, it's not a treasure hunt to find Sterilite. They have them at Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's. And so not 100% of Sterilite products are made in the US, but a bunch of them are, and they're actually quite easy to find.
Yeah, and in addition to the small drawers, the storage containers, they have plastic cups and they have those laundry hampers. I've seen those. I think at places like Target. And you need those too, because my laundry hamper was the closet. And when the clothes got up to my clean clothes, it was like, oh God. And, and then it's like, I don't have quarters back in the day. What about clothes storage? Speaking of clothes, in very small closets, as a chick, I can tell you this. Walmart home brand mainstays, they have an extensive selection of made in the USA plastic hangers in multiple styles, materials, and colors because you want to make it your own. And girls more
Yeah.
so perhaps than the guys want to, maybe they want their room purple. And Target has a home essentials brand, made in the USA for hangers too, right? So, like you said, this isn't like finding some website for some company you've never heard of. These are products that some people have perhaps purchased, or hey, when you're in Walmart or Target, you do have
That's
these made
right.
in America choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, this is the nice thing is that you don't have to go out of your way to find these, right? And
Right,
so
right.
it's easy for a family or a student to go out and shop and make some conscientious made in the USA choices there.
Now, this is something I will need for my daughter. Not my son as much. My daughter, I've gone broke on Starbucks. Mom, can I get bucks? Or, just on the phone, the Apple Pay.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I didn't even think of a coffee maker for the room. And that's
Hmm.
really smart because they're usually all running late for class when they have morning classes and mommy's not there or daddy's not there to wake them up. AeroPress is a coffee maker. It's actually recommended by the New York Times. And the cheap coffee tastes better in them, doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's cheaper than buying bucks every day.
Yeah, it sure is. And it's nice. I mean, I don't know, as a student, like I needed coffee right away. Like I couldn't even make it to well, we didn't have Starbucks, I'm gonna be honest, but
Me either.
I could not have made it
We
to
had Burger King on campus. That
yeah,
was it. And that's how
yeah.
we gained the freshman 10.
Yeah. But these AeroPress, they're good. They're awesome. They're made in the USA. A number of our staff have them recommended by the New York Times. And these are things that again are widely available at a lot of stores or easy to order like online if you shop that way. And so they are a solid, especially for a kid who is caffeine dependent, I would say.
Absolutely. I want to get to how Manufacturing USA and MEP are fueling American innovation in our last less than 2 minutes on the program, but I
Yeah,
do want
sure.
people to have options. Just everything we've mentioned is available on the AAM website. Also, you guys post and there's links for people to be able to buy all this stuff and find these companies to buy all this stuff and more that we didn't get to mention, correct?
That's absolutely right. And yeah, they'll find a bunch of options that didn't even make it into this blog because of space limitations as
Absolutely.
well.
And because
Yeah.
of time, we didn't get to talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
all of them. Okay. So, what's helping keep American manufacturing alive and thriving in a global economy? Well, you guys, Manufacturing USA and the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, MEP. Can you talk to us briefly, like in a minute?
Yeah.
Sorry, time wise, about these
Yeah,
two
sure.
national programs that are helping to build a stronger, smarter, more sustainable future for American industry.
Yeah, both Manufacturing USA and the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program help with innovation, help with problem solving, help with process improvement, help small and mid-sized firms, the folks who don't have a big staff to do this stuff, and they have a lot of success. Like their ROI, the return on investment, is very high, and so we have some examples from all over the country, from both Manufacturing Extension Partnership sites as well as the Manufacturing USA institutes that help with various kinds of like things from 3D printing to semiconductors on how they have lifted up small and mid-sized manufacturers in the United States, and especially now that there should be more opportunity because of some of these tariffs. And so, but you have to have the ecosystem in the United States, MEPs, Manufacturing USA, provide the foundation for that. And we wanted to help lift up their story and make sure that folks knew that this is an essential part of having Made in the USA become even more of a reality, Leslie.
Awesome. Always learn so much and enjoy having you on, Scott. Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, has been our guest. By the way, check out that website so you can get all those products for your kids going off to school. You want to support American-made companies that make their products in the USA. Support those companies. Buy American. Go to americanmanufacturing.org. And on YouTube, check out the podcast, The Manufacturing Report. You get to hear about some of these great companies from some of these great owners and families and family-owned businesses. Go to youtube.com. The YouTube channel for The Manufacturing Report is youtube.com/@AmericanMFG. And if you want to listen to episodes of The Manufacturing Report, visit americanmanufacturing.org/podcast. Follow them, the AAM, at Keep It Made in USA, on X on BlueSky at Keep It Made in USA.bsky.social, and follow Scott on X at Scott Paul AAM. I'm Leslie Marshall for Scott Paul and Marky Mark Romaldi, our executive producer. Have a wonderful day, night, and weekend.